You know, every once in a while, a story comes along that makes you question how well you really know the people around you. We're talking about a young woman with everything to live for, dreams, ambition, a family who loved her. And yet she crossed paths with someone who would turn her life into a nightmare. This isn't just a murder case. It's a story about trust, red flags ignored, and a system that failed to keep a dangerous man locked away. And by the end, you'll see how a bright 19-year-old college student ended up tortured, burned, and dumped in like she never mattered. Now hold up, before we dive all the way in, let's talk about that headline you just read. 19-year-old girl tortured, murdered, burnt, and dumped in a car trunk by her 29-year-old boyfriend. Yeah, that sounds like something straight out of a horror movie, filmed in Florida, produced in Texas, and set in California. But unfortunately, this one's not Hollywood fiction. This happened right here in North Carolina, and trust me, the details get even darker than the headline suggests. Welcome to True Crime Family Stories, where we uncover the cases that shake entire communities and remind us why staying aware could literally save a life. If you're new here, hit that like and share button because stories like Amariah's need to be heard and your support helps keep her memory alive. So let's start where every true crime case should, at the very beginning. Amariah Smith wasn't just another name on a police report. Amariah Smith was born and raised in Nashville, Nash County, North Carolina, and from the jump she was the kind of person who wanted to do it all. At Nash Central High School, she wasn't just drifting through classes. She joined JROTC, put in hours with the yearbook committee, cheered under the Friday night lights, and still found time to serve as class president. Teachers remembered her as the type who wouldn't just finish her own homework, but would sit with other kids, especially special needs students, and walk them through theirs. She had that patience, that calling. Teaching ran in her blood. Her mom was a teacher, and Amariah wanted to follow right behind her. When she graduated in 2022, she gave this speech that, in hindsight, feels almost chilling. She stood there in her cap and gown, telling her classmates, "We're going to fail. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to make wrong turns and maybe even want to quit. But we can't." She thanked her parents, her mom for the love and wisdom, her dad for being tough but never leaving her side, and told her class to stay grateful, no matter how hard life got. Nobody in that gym could have imagined that those words would hit so differently just a couple of years later. After high school, she enrolled at Elizabeth City State University, majoring in elementary education. College wasn't cheap, so she hustled. She pulled shifts at McDonald's, stocked shelves at Dollar General, even scrubbed floors for a cleaning service. She did whatever it took to make tuition. That was Amariah in a nutshell. Dreams required sacrifice, and she was willing to put in the work. Now, when it came to dating, she wasn't in any rush. In fact, when someone asked her if she was seeing anyone, she just shrugged and said, "It's complicated. Not in a relationship, but I have my eyes on somebody. It's kind of up and down." She wanted someone who matched her ambition, someone who could grind as hard as she did, but still have fun along the way. What she got instead was the complete opposite. In January 2024, she crossed paths with a man named Jordan Isaiah Thomas, and that meeting would derail everything she had been building. Jordan was 29, almost a full decade older, and the type of man whose background should have been flashing in red neon for everyone to see. He had prior arrests, a rap sheet that suggested trouble followed him like a shadow, but he managed to slide his way into Amariah's life, and once he did, he tightened his grip. Amariah had big plans for her life. She wanted to step into classrooms and shape young minds, to do for children what her own mother had done for countless students. Teaching wasn't just a career goal for her, it was her calling. But those dreams were about to collide with a nightmare she never saw coming. It all started so casually. At Elizabeth City State University, some of Amariah's friends decided they wanted tattoos. They knew a guy, a local business owner with a shop not too far from campus. His name was Jordan Thomas. He ran a place called Vision Incorporated in Elizabeth City. At first glance, he looked like just another man trying to keep a small business alive. He was 29 years old, almost a decade older than Amariah, but when her friends introduced them, he came off as friendly, approachable, maybe even charming. To her, he was just another connection in a college town. But Jordan Thomas wasn't what he seemed. Behind the tattoo needles and business talk, he was hiding a past that should have made anyone run the other way. Just the year before, in 2022, he had been tied to a shooting involving a woman. Police reports and court records show he was charged in connection with another shooting, and the victim herself said she never saw justice. Imagine that. A man who had already proven he could pull a trigger, already shown he had violence inside him, standing in front of a judge. And yet the case was dismissed. Not enough evidence, they said. That dismissal was a death sentence for Amariah, because instead of facing consequences, Jordan walked out a free man. No jail time, no restrictions, no supervision. He went right back to his life, running his tattoo shop, meeting new faces, and walking among young women who had no idea what kind of danger he carried with him. When Amariah met him, she couldn't have known any of this. Why would she? The court system had erased it with one decision. To her, he wasn't a violent offender. He was just a small business owner who seemed driven, older, maybe even more mature than the boys on her campus. And that mattered to her. She had said before that relationships were complicated, but if she ever committed, it would be to someone with ambition, someone willing to work hard but still enjoy life. On paper, Jordan looked like he fit. The problem was nobody recognized the warning signs, not her friends who introduced them, not the community who saw him as just another tattoo artist. The red flags were there, but they were invisible to everyone who hadn't seen his record. And that's how Jordan slipped into Amariah's world, a world where she believed she was safe, where she thought she was just getting to know a man with a business, when in reality she was walking straight into the orbit of someone whose past crimes had been buried under the phrase, "not enough evidence." The age gap between them wasn't just a number. Jordan was almost 30, a man who had been living as an adult for over a decade. Amariah was still a teenager, barely stepping into her own independence, just starting to figure out her life. He came with a violent history that had been swept away because the justice system never carried it through to trial. That past was never made public, so when young college students walked into his tattoo shop, they had no clue they were stepping into the orbit of someone who had already hurt women before. That's why this connection should never have happened. If the case from 2022 had been handled properly, Jordan would have been behind bars. If background checks actually did their job, his reputation would have spoken for itself. Instead, a 19-year-old honor student, full of promise, crossed paths with a man who had already proven what he was capable of. What followed didn't just end Amariah's life. It shattered her family's world. And it all could have been prevented. January 2024 should have been a fresh start for Amariah. She had just returned to Elizabeth City State University after winter break, ready for her sophomore year. Classes, assignments, late-night texts with friends, little plans for the weekend. She was in the rhythm of a typical college student. On January 17th, the day that would end up changing everything, she was seen with Jordan Thomas. To anyone who spotted them, it looked perfectly normal. Two people hanging out, maybe talking about what to do later. Her phone buzzed with a few texts to friends that day, nothing alarming, nothing hinting at danger. And then, silence. At first, no one panicked. College students are unpredictable. You miss a call, forget to reply, get buried in schoolwork, or a night out with friends. A few hours of silence wasn't strange, but silence stretched into a day. Then another. Amariah's phone went straight to voicemail. Her social media stayed frozen. She didn't show up to class. She didn't show up to work. That was when the worry really set in. This wasn't her. Amariah was reliable, grounded, the kind of daughter who checked in. Her mother, Keisha Odom, started making calls. Friends, classmates. Had anyone seen her? Did anyone know where she was? Nobody had. That sick, heavy feeling in a parent's gut crept over her, the one you can't ignore, the one that screams, something is terribly wrong. And still, even in her worst fears, Keisha couldn't have imagined what had really happened to her daughter. While the family was searching, filing missing person reports, calling hospitals, praying for a simple explanation, the truth was already sealed. Amariah was gone. The nightmare had started the moment she went silent, and the discovery that followed would shake the entire community. On January 17th in Washington, North Carolina, a tow truck driver got what sounded like a routine call. A car had been sitting abandoned in a business parking lot off Highway 264. Nothing unusual about that. Happens all the time. The driver hitched the vehicle and hauled it back to his company's lot. Just another job, another car. Standard policy meant he had to check the inside before locking it away. Sometimes people left IDs, wallets, even phones. Things that could help trace the owner. He started with the front seats. Nothing. Checked the back seats. Empty. Then he moved to the trunk, slipped the key in, turned it, popped it open. What he found inside wasn't the usual lost handbag or box of junk. It was the kind of sight you expect in a movie, not in the middle of your workday. The kind of sight you never forget. When the tow truck driver lifted the trunk that afternoon, the last thing he expected was what stared back at him. The body of a young woman was crumpled in the space, and it was immediately clear this wasn't just a death. Someone had tried to erase her. Her body had been burned, dismembered, pieces missing, the stench so overpowering it clung to his clothes and skin. It was the kind of sight that doesn't wash out of your memory. He dropped everything and dialed 911. Within minutes, what had been a quiet business lot in Washington, North Carolina, was swallowed by flashing lights and yellow tape. Patrol cars, ambulances, crime scene vans, all of it converged at once. Investigators quickly realized they'd need dental records or DNA to confirm who she was, because the remains were so badly damaged. But the car itself offered a faster lead. It wasn't registered to the victim. The plates traced back to a 29-year-old man from Edenton named Jordan Thomas. That name set off alarms the second it hit the system. Officers knew him. He owned Vision Inc., a tattoo shop near Elizabeth City State University, and his name was already tied to a violent case against a woman back in 2022. As detectives processed the car, they realized the trunk wasn't the only place this woman's remains had been. There was evidence of a burn site somewhere else, a location where her killer tried to completely obliterate her body before dumping what was left. This wasn't heat-of-the-moment rage. This was methodical, deliberate. Whoever did this wanted her gone so thoroughly, it would be like she never existed. Even seasoned homicide detectives admitted they hadn't seen many cases this calculated. By the next day, the victim was identified. 19-year-old Amariah Smith, the honor student who worked multiple jobs to cover tuition, the sophomore who wanted to be a teacher like her mother, the girl who once stood on stage at her graduation telling her classmates not to give up. Now she was gone, her body mutilated and hidden inside a car that belonged to the very man she trusted. With her remains found in Jordan Thomas's vehicle, police knew exactly where to start. But when they went looking for him, he was nowhere to be found. His Edenton address was empty. His tattoo shop was shuttered. It looked like he had vanished. Investigators dug into surveillance from around the towing lot, and what they saw explained everything. Cameras caught Jordan dropping off the car, glancing over his shoulder, and then slipping into a pickup truck parked nearby. He stole it on the spot. No hesitation. He ditched his own vehicle with a body inside and immediately boosted another ride in broad daylight. That's not panic. That's someone who knows exactly what they've done and is desperate to get out. The stolen truck became his undoing. The owner reported it immediately, and this one came with GPS tracking. Now, police weren't chasing shadows. They could watch his route play out turn by turn. Highway cameras showed the truck weaving through eastern North Carolina, doubling back, changing directions like a man with no plan. Agencies from the county to the state joined the search. Everyone was on alert for Jordan Thomas and that stolen vehicle. The chase ended in the most unexpected place, ECU Health Beaufort Hospital. Surveillance cameras caught the truck pulling into the lot and Jordan climbing out like nothing had happened. Nobody knows what he was thinking walking into a hospital. Maybe he was hurt. Maybe he thought it was a safe place to hide. Maybe his mind had finally cracked. Whatever the reason, security recognized the stolen truck and called police instantly. Within minutes, the building was surrounded. And just like that, Jordan gave up. No fight, no standoff. He surrendered like he knew the game was over. At first, prosecutors played it careful. The charges were concealing the death of a person and stealing the truck. Serious, yes, but not yet murder. Detectives needed more. They needed to tie him directly to Amariah's death, not just her body. That's when they executed a search warrant on his home in Edenton. What they found inside has never been fully revealed to the public. Police have kept those details sealed. But whatever it was damning. Damning enough to upgrade the charges from concealment to first-degree murder. By the time January 22, 2024 rolled around, Jordan Thomas wasn't just a suspect. He was an indicted murderer. A grand jury handed him a murder charge, and the judge set his bond at $550,000 cash. That's not pocket change. That was the kind of number designed to keep him right where he was, in the Beaufort County Jail. And he wasn't sitting there because of one department. His arrest was the result of a joint effort. The FBI, Beaufort County Sheriff's Office, Pasquotank County, and Chowan County all pulled their resources together to corner him. But even with Thomas behind bars, detectives knew their work wasn't close to finished. The car trunk wasn't the place Amariah died, it was just the dumping ground. The real question was, where was the primary crime scene? When exactly did Jordan kill her? How many hours did he spend trying to erase what he had done? And the biggest question of all, why? The answer started to take shape when the medical examiner dropped their report in late January. On paper, the official cause of death was homicide undetermined. Cold, clinical language. But the details behind that phrase were stomach-turning. Amariah's body was so badly damaged, burned, cut apart, and scattered that the examiner couldn't pinpoint a single cause of death. But the condition of her remains told a darker story. She may have been shot before Thomas set about burning and dismembering her. Think about that. A 19-year-old girl, shot, then dragged through hours of destruction as her killer tried to wipe her off the map. And the damage wasn't limited to the trunk where the tow truck driver made the initial discovery. Investigators had located a second site, a burn pit, a place Jordan either built or chose specifically to finish what he started. That's where more of Amariah's remains were found. He wasn't panicking. He was deliberate. He wanted every trace of her existence destroyed. That level of planning chilled even seasoned detectives who had seen more than their share of brutality. But the science wasn't the only gut punch. How Amariah's family learned the details was a tragedy of its own. Her mother, Turkisha Odom, didn't get a private briefing or a sit-down with investigators. She found out like everyone else, through the news. Imagine watching the evening broadcast, hearing anchors describe how your daughter had been shot, burned, and dismembered. Turkisha later called it a nightmare that never ended. She wasn't just grieving the loss of her child, she was blindsided again and again, each time another detail hit the media, before it came from the people handling the case. The autopsy confirmed what the investigation had already shown. Amariah Smith didn't just die, she was obliterated by someone she trusted. Thomas didn't just take her life, he tried to erase her completely, as though she had never been here at all. But Amariah was here. She had dreams, she had plans, she had people who loved her. And now the justice system had to decide whether Jordan Thomas was going to pay for every single cruel choice he made in those final hours. When detectives finally got that search warrant for Jordan Thomas's house in Edenton, they weren't sure what they'd walk into, but what they uncovered sealed his fate. The specifics are still locked down, but here's what we know. Whatever was inside that home tied Jordan directly to Amariah's murder. This wasn't just concealment. This wasn't panic. The evidence proved planning. Think about that for a second. He had a window of time to change his mind, to let Amariah walk away, to call for help. Instead, he chose violence, then followed it up with hours of destruction, transporting her body like cargo and dumping it in that lot. Detectives could now say with confidence that Amariah's life wasn't taken inside that car trunk. She was killed somewhere else, almost certainly inside Jordan's home. That detail matters because it shows premeditation. By January 22, 2024, a grand jury had heard enough. They indicted Jordan Thomas for murder, and the judge slapped him with a $550,000 cash bond, basically a financial wall that guaranteed he'd stay locked up. For Amariah's family, that should have been a small step toward justice. But Jordan's defense team wasn't about to make it easy. They came back with a curveball. They claimed he wasn't mentally fit to stand trial. Suddenly, the man who had the presence of mind to torch evidence, steal a truck in broad daylight, and stroll into a hospital like nothing happened, was supposedly too unstable to even understand the charges against him. That claim meant one thing: months of waiting. Jordan was shipped off for psychological evaluations to test whether he grasped reality enough to face a jury. And here's the frustrating part. This tactic isn't new. Defense attorneys use it all the time to buy their clients time. For Amariah's family, every delay was another gut punch, another reminder that justice moves at a crawl while their grief never stops. So, was Jordan genuinely unraveling? Or was this a man trying one more angle to avoid responsibility? Remember, he'd already proven himself calculating. He didn't freeze in panic. He burned, he dismembered, he transported, he stole, he plotted. Does that sound like someone too far gone to understand consequences? As of the most recent updates, Jordan is still sitting in Chowan County Jail, the case dragging through motions and evaluations. Meanwhile, Amariah's mother and family are stuck in this cruel limbo. For over a year now, they've been forced to relive their nightmare, while the man accused of killing their daughter plays chess with the legal system. And still, some of the most haunting questions remain unanswered. Where exactly was Amariah killed? Investigators strongly believe it was Jordan's home, but no official confirmation has been given. And maybe the darkest question of all, why? What pushed him to take a promising 19-year-old honor student and destroy her in the most brutal way imaginable? Police haven't released a motive, and maybe they never will. What we do know is this: the evidence against Jordan Thomas is stacked high, and eventually he will face a jury. When that day comes, it won't just be about proving murder. It will be about exposing the lengths one man went to erase a young woman's existence, and making sure he never gets another chance to hurt anyone again. There's something chilling about this case, and it goes beyond the brutal details of Amariah Smith's death. It's the complete absence of a clear motive. There's no evidence of a messy breakup, no whispers of arguments, no late-night screaming matches. Nothing to suggest that Amariah and Jordan Thomas even had a romantic relationship at all. So why would a 29-year-old tattoo shop owner murder a 19-year-old college sophomore? People have theories. Some believe it was a sexual assault that escalated and ended in murder. Others think Jordan had been planning this long before Amariah ever crossed his path, maybe watching and waiting for the right moment. Another possibility? Amariah may have learned something about his past, something he couldn't risk getting out. Or maybe there's no logic to it at all. Maybe Jordan Thomas is exactly what he looks like on paper, a predator who spotted someone vulnerable and decided to exploit it. And here's where the story gets darker. This wasn't Jordan's first run-in with violence. Back in 2022, he shot a woman. That's not speculation, that's documented. But the case was tossed out before trial, dismissed. The victim never got justice, and Jordan walked away without so much as probation. If the system had done its job then, Amariah would still be alive. Now, here's the part that should keep everyone awake at night. The way Jordan handled Amariah's murder doesn't look like someone panicking after a bad decision. It looks calculated. It looks practiced. He dismembered her, burned parts of her body in a pit, and hid the rest in the trunk of his car. That's not improvised. That's preparation. Which raises a terrifying question. Was Amariah really his first victim? Or just the first one who couldn't be erased completely? Investigators know what you're probably thinking. They've asked themselves the same thing. Are there other missing women in North Carolina who could be connected to Jordan Thomas? Have unsolved cases been pulled from the shelves to compare evidence? They haven't said publicly, but the burn pit alone is a red flag. You don't just build or find a place like that on a whim. It takes time, it takes planning, it suggests intent. And maybe, just maybe, it was ready long before Amariah ever walked into his life. That's what terrifies her family the most. They already know what he did to her. They already know she suffered. But what they may never know is why. Did she stumble across something she shouldn't have? Was she targeted from the start? Or was she simply in the wrong place at the wrong time when Jordan Thomas decided to act? Those questions hang over this case like a shadow. For now, Jordan sits behind bars, waiting for his day in court. And while his lawyers argue about mental fitness and delay tactics, Amariah's family lives with a wound that never closes. They can't get her back. They may never get all the answers. But what they want, what they deserve, is accountability. Amariah wasn't just another statistic. She was a bright, determined young woman with dreams of shaping young minds. She wanted to inspire children the way her own mother inspired her. That future was stolen. And now it's on all of us to make sure her name isn't lost in the noise of the next headline. So like and share her story. Keep her memory alive. Because justice isn't just about what happens in a courtroom. It's about making sure the world never forgets who Amariah Smith was and never lets another Jordan Thomas slip through the cracks again.